Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at one of the Grade 1 races on Whitney Saturday at Saratoga. Race 11 is the Grade 1 Saratoga Derby. This one going the 1.316 distance on the turf for 3-year-olds. A highly competitive 10-horse field entered for this race, Mike. A lot of runners coming out of the prior race in this series. The Belmont Derby, we've got the winner of that race, Title Roll, back in here. He caused a minor upset. The favorite from that race, remember, Mamba back in. West End Kid also in that photo finish. But we've got some new shooters in here as well, and there are many ways to go in this competitive field.
Yeah, just another really strong race on this Whitney Day card at Saratoga. This is it brought together a real nice group of horses. And now a couple of these are cross-entered into another race, so we'll see where they decide to run. But overall, this drew another really strong field.
Yeah, I texted our colleague Dave Gretting to try to get some clarity on where those cross-entered horses are running as of the time we're recording this on Wednesday morning. Don't know yet, but make sure to check out the DRF.com website for the latest reporting on where the two cross-entered horses, the number 1 Glavine and the number 9 Bottas, wind up between the Hall of Fame stakes and this one. Start to go through this field, beginning with the number 1 Glavine. And if he runs in this race, Mike, I think he's a little bit interesting getting out to this longer distance, because when you watch this horse run, he's got this huge stride on him. He's a strong finisher, but he's sort of more of a grinding type, lacking that big turn of foot. And the horses like that, I tend to think, are going to appreciate some more ground. The key with Glavine, and we talked about this when we handicapped the Hall of Fame, is going to be getting out of the gate, because he has been a little unfocused in the starting gate of his last couple starts. You could just kind of see it before they break from the gate. He's kind of bobbing his head. He's not really focused on the task at hand, and he's popped at the start or broken a step slowly out twice in a row. So that's going to be an issue for him, Mike, especially breaking from the inside. But if he runs in this race, he will get one of the best gate riders in the game in Kendrick Carmouche aboard, and it's a pretty murky pace scenario here. And if he breaks, I wouldn't be shocked to see this horse find himself on the lead.
I wouldn't either, but it is the break is key for this horse. There's no doubt about that. I think the more important part of it for me, though, was the first thing that you brought up with Glavine, is that the longer distance might really work for him. I do believe that there are a couple horses in here where distance is a real question. Not for him. I'm with you. I think he's going to be okay going this far. And I thought after sort of breaking a step slowly, getting bumped and squeezed back in the Saranac last time, I thought this horse ran really well. I mean, he did get to save a lot of ground, but he also had to sort of angle. He got caught behind horses, had to angle to the inside to get his run while other horses were getting out into the clear. I thought he ran really well last time.
Yeah, I don't even think that's his natural style, to come from off the pace and weave through traffic. And the fact that he ran as well as he did after that less than ideal start, I think it just speaks to the fact that he's a horse with real quality, Mike. And looking back at some of his prior form, we talked about it when we were handicapping the Hall of Fame. I wasn't that sure that there was that big of a disparity in quality between the Saranac and the Belmont Derby. I think that question's going to come up again as we handicap this race. So I thought he might be good enough to go with these horses if he breaks. We'll see if that's the case. The number 2 is Heeeres Johnny. He was the winner of the Saranac with a big last to first move. We'll take a look at the stretch run of this race, and the pace obviously developed for him. They were going quickly up front. This was a race that was mostly dominated by closers. But still, this is a pretty impressive run that he puts in, Mike. He's still last with about 3/16 of a mile to go here. And as soon as his jockey gets him to the far outside, you can just see him lengthen his stride to gobble up the ground and beat this field. This was his maiden victory, because he was a horse who had kind of been relegated to second and third place finishes against Stakes Company early in his career. But now that he's got this victory under his belt, why not step back up into Grade 1 company? Because he's proven that he's this quality in the past.
Yeah, they've challenged this horse right along throughout his career, and he's actually stood up to it really well. He didn't win any of those prior stakes races, but he ran really well in just about all of them. So that win was overdue for him. Listen, he ran great in that race. He's a good horse anyway. He did, in a lot of ways, have all the best of it in there, though, not only because he had pace in front of him, but because he had the clean trip down the outside, while some other horses maybe weren't as lucky. I mean, everybody can go back and watch that replay and sort of decide for yourself if you feel like some of these other horses that he ran down were compromised. I thought some of them were. It doesn't take away from the fact that Heeeres Johnny's been a good horse from day one, and he's still a good horse.
The number 3, remember Mamba. He was the beaten favorite in the Belmont Derby last time. And Mike, I'm kind of curious to know what you thought of the trip, because it obviously was a race that didn't feature a ton of pace, and it was kind of hard to close through the stretch. I still felt like Remember Mamba got out with plenty of time at the quarter pole and had a real look at it. And he's always been a horse that sort of takes a while to reach his top speed or his biggest stride. And it seemed like he was kind of hitting it as they came to the wire, but I still felt, watching the replay back, like he had a chance to win that race, and I couldn't quite push past those horses. He's a popular horse. I feel like he's going to take money again. And I just didn't know if I wanted to take another short price on him in a field that came up this tough.
Yeah, great. They just didn't like his Belmont Derby last time. It's not like he ran poorly in there, but I'm with you. I just felt like overall that trip was a decent trip. He didn't have a big excuse, in my opinion. He had every chance to win. And it just, yeah, like as you said, he was just grinding instead of like really kicking at the end of that race. And then he surged to the wire, but it was too late. I was just very disappointed with him last time. Still think he's a really good horse. Won't be shocked when he wins here, but I'm betting somebody else.
And he is one of those horses where it feels like the extra distance really will work for him. I think that's a bit of a question for the next horse we'll get to, the number 4, Title Roll. He was the winner of the Belmont Derby, and as we're talking about it, let's take a look at the stretch run of the race. You'll see Title Roll. He's going to be the horse that's highlighted on the lead into the lane. West End Kid is going to be coming up outside of him. Remember, Mamba is in that purple and yellow cap swinging to the far outside, and those will be the 3 that decide the trifecta here in a blanket finish, Mike. As for Title Roll, the trip worked out perfectly. I mean, he was one of these European horses that broke very sharply. He had natural speed. An American jockey, John Velasquez, put him forward, was confident to get that 2-wide pressing trip, and he kicks for home really nicely in upper stretch. But you can see as they come onto the wire here, he's shortening stride a little bit, and it gets pretty tight on the wire, whereas it looked at the 16th pole like he had this race in the bag. So it makes you wonder a little bit if the mile and 3/16 could maybe expose some distance limitations.
Yeah, I'm worried about that for sure because obviously he was saved by the wire in the Belmont Derby last time, and then the other point that you landed there too was an important one. He just got such a great trip in that race, and some other horses weren't as lucky. Listen, he ran the race that he ran, and he got the job done. And I do believe that he's a pretty nice horse, but I'm not betting him off that last one. I'd rather have other horses out of the Belmont Derby.
Mike, I don't want to make too much of this because I'm not familiar with the way this horse trained previously. He's obviously not accustomed to American training methods, but he's been left in Saratoga since the last race. He's been training, it looks like, with the Brendan Walsh bar, and I think he's going to be going to Brendan Walsh after this race. I have not liked his drills over the Oklahoma turf course. He's been getting outworked by some horses in the morning. I don't know what to make of that because, like I said, I'm not familiar if he's a good workhorse in the morning or not. The number 5 is Pacific Avenue. He was the 7th place finisher in the Belmont Derby. Took a ton of money that day to get bet down to under 7-2 and couldn't quite get it done for the popular connections of Charlie Appy and William Buick. It just seemed like he was out of position from the start of the race. He was off a step slowly, was just kind of out the back door the whole way. Even at the top of the stretch, Mike, it looked like he was going to get nothing until about the final 16th of a mile when he kicked in, but just did so belatedly. And he was really running on as they came across the wire, but was just never really in position to make a serious impact in that race. They're putting blinkers on. He's getting a jockey switch to Irad Ortiz, but he's got to break quicker and show more tactical speed this time.
He needs to get a different trip. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you mentioned that the money poured in on this horse. I'm not so sure that money pouring in wasn't the right money. I mean, this horse to me was pretty unlucky in the Belmont Derby. He just never had a chance to win that race. Not only was he out of position early, but even as they got into the far turn when Buick was trying to get this horse to improve his position, but he just got stuck between and behind horses. And the next thing you know, he's last again as they come around the final turn. He had no chance in that race. I'm surprised he finished as close as he did in there. Considering the final fractions of this race, they were really running home at the end of this thing, and he was making up ground from last. I thought he ran great in there. Listen, they're putting blinkers on, but this horse has been running in cheek pieces, so I don't know how big a difference that is. I think the rider change could actually be a good thing, picking up Irad. Not that, obviously Buick's world class, but I don't mind the rider switch with this horse at all. Listen, I'll wait and see what kind of price he is, but if nothing else, he deserves another chance. He had a no chance trip last time.
Yeah, I like his workouts in the morning. He's also stayed at Saratoga. I'm watching them. I can see that Irad's been getting up in the morning, so he's familiar with this horse. I think he's going to run better here, Mike. It's just these connections are so popular. Yeah. I liked him last time, as you remember. I was never envisioning he'd be 3-1, so I'm now kind of scared that he's a horse that might take a little more money again, especially with Irad getting aboard. The number 6 is Glacius, and he's a new face in this race. We talked about 2 European shippers that came over for the Belmont Derby. Glacius, this will be his first U.S. start. He's been competing overseas for trainer Hugo Palmer, who admittedly has not had a whole lot of success shipping horses to the U.S. in the past. But you look through this horse's form, running lines, the competition that he's faced, it feels like he fits with this field, Mike. I mean, he faced off against a really good horse during his 2-year-old season in the multiple Grade 1 winner Bo Echo in the second start of his career. He's faced some good ones since then. The horse who won his final race as a 2-year-old at the Autumn Stakes, that horse was 3rd in the Group 1 French 2000 Guineas earlier this year. More recently, he competed at Royal Ascot, was 3rd in a Group 3 there. Watching his trips, it feels like he's got a decent turn of foot on him. It's just going to be, how does he get out of the gate and what kind of trip does he get?
That's the thing. Yeah, he's a real wild card in this race because he has kept good company over there. And listen, he's not winning races, but he's not being embarrassed by those horses, and he's facing good fields. I think it's also probably pretty telling that for his first 2 starts this year, they've gotten him out to 1.25 miles. I feel like they feel like longer distances are better for this horse, and that's not the case, I think, for a lot of these American horses in this race. So that could really work to his advantage too. I mean, I couldn't totally get there with this horse, but it's not like I looked at his races over there and thought, oh, well, he has no chance in this race. I think this horse is actually pretty good.
The number 7, the Big Con, he's a big question mark in this race because it's kind of strange. A horse who has only competed on synthetic during his 2-year-old season is now coming off this significant layoff and making his return as a 3-year-old in a grade 1 race trying turf for the first time. So they're asking an awful lot of this horse, Mike, but these are connections that win races, connections that know what they're doing. And the fact that they're putting this horse in the race, you've got to think it speaks to a little bit of confidence in his ability. And when you go back and watch his 2-year-old races, you can kind of see some hints as to why. We'll watch his victory in the Gray Stakes that concluded the 2-race 2-year-old campaign. And he's the number 1 here. You can see him kind of waiting in behind horses early in this race. He was hard to handle. The jockey had a really tight hold on his left rein, like he was almost getting out. But once he finds daylight in the stretcher, you could see he just easily takes over. His ears prick immediately. He's just, you could tell there's more on the tank here. He's just really goofy, not even just figuring things out as the race goes on. He gallops out really strongly after this race. So, Mike, I'm pretty confident that we haven't yet seen the best this horse has to offer on the racetrack. And furthermore, he's got a big turf pedigree on both sides.
He really does. Listen, I liked both of his races last year. I thought he ran really well both times. I don't know what it all means. They're asking so much of this horse. And here, listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I think all of these other horses that we've talked about so far and the horses we're going to get to, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I think they're all killers. I think they're all really nice horses. So I don't think this horse is like in an impossible spot here. I still don't think I could bet him against these horses first off the layoff, first time on turf against this field.
One thing I've noted about his races, Mike, he drew the rail a couple times, was maybe a half step slow from the great gate, but he wanted to show speed in those races, and I kind of had to prevent him from doing so. If he's a better gate horse this time, I wouldn't be surprised if he's one that's very forward in this race under Tara Gaffalione. The number 8, McCready, I suppose he's another potential pace player, though. I don't know how fast this horse really is, Mike. I know he led throughout in a 1 3/16 race at Keeneland earlier this year. That wasn't the most competitive spot or most competitive pace scenario. There was kind of no pace on that race when you handicapped it. And he had a lot of trouble getting out of the gate in his last race. I know it was an off the turf race, but he broke very slowly that day. Did make a nice looping move to win, but just not sure that this horse is quite as good as the foes he's facing on Saturday.
I just think it's a tough spot for him. His turf races are actually all pretty good. I actually like all of them. He took advantage when he won that Keeneland race on the lead. He certainly had the best trip in the race and just, managed to hold on at the end. But it's not like his prior races weren't any good. They were fine. I just don't know if he's going to be up for this kind of assignment.
The number 9, Bottas, he is another one that was cross-entered in the Hall of Fame stakes on Friday. We'll see where he ultimately winds up. But if he runs here, Mike, I mean, he's got to look to him because he's competed against some of these horses now twice in a row, faced off against West End Kid in the Pennine Ridge, did not run badly, closing for 3rd. And then last time, he was in that Belmont Derby, part of the blanket finish. He had to settle for 5th. But we talked about it when we handicapped the Hall of Fame. He was just never fully clear through the stretch. And in a race that mostly held together up front, that might have worked against him.
I think it did. I actually feel like this horse has run better than it looks in both of his starts so far this year. He needs a clean trip, and he just hasn't had a clean trip yet in his first 2 starts as a 3-year-old. He actually didn't even have a clean one at the Breeders' Cup last year either. So this horse is, I think he's a lot better than he looks on paper. I'll ask you this question though, David, because I actually like him in here, and I think he's a major player in this race. Are you worried about more distance for this horse? I'm not quite sure I'm sold on the idea that he gets better with more distance, but I guess we'll find out.
A little bit, Mike, and I think it's going to depend on his placement early because he's a horse that I could see, stalking in 4th if he breaks well, or I could see him, out the back in 9th or 10th early, and that could be a difficult position to be in if you've got a horse who already has some potential distance concerns. The number 10 is West End Kid, and Mike, of the horses coming out of the Belmont Derby, he felt like the most reliable option to me because not only does he show up every time and he's consistent, but he's got the natural tactical speed where he can put himself in the right position in this race. And I'm not concerned at all about post 10 because there's a long run to the clubhouse turn here. So Flavien Prat is going to have plenty of time to get this horse over, and nobody is better at reading pace scenarios than Flavien Prat on this NYRA circuit. They're taking the blinkers off for this race. Apparently it's something that Will Walton has wanted to do for a while. He actually asked for permission to take the blinkers off the Belmont Derby. The stewards denied him because he was coming off a win. So losing that race by a nose, he gets to do it here, but I thought this horse ran just fine last time, Mike. He never had cover. He was basically 2 to 3 wide all the way around the track. It doesn't feel like distance is going to be a real problem.
Yeah, that was the other thing I liked. I liked what you mentioned first too. He's just so reliable as far as trips go. Like he's so handy that he puts himself into position in every one of his races. So I like that, and I also just feel like he's one of the horses that more distance to me is not an issue for this horse. I'm with you. I think he's a very reliable option in here. In a lot of ways, I think he's the horse to beat, and I expect him to come back and run well again.
Let's go to our picks for this Saratoga Derby. A lot of different ways to go in this race, and I'm not too surprised when we throw the picks up. I think we're going to see Mike and I landed in some different spots here. We agree on the number 10 West End Kid, Mike. I think he's the one horse that we both have in our top 4 here. He kind of does feel like the horse to beat in this race, but I felt like I wasn't sure I really wanted the horses out of the Belmont Derby, Mike. It was just a blanket finish. I wasn't sure how strong that race was. So I'm taking a couple of horses on top from different races. The number 1 Glavine, who I thought ran better than it looks in the Saranac last time, could be a potential speed if he breaks this time. And the number 7, the Big Con, who's a wild card in this race. Yes. But I thought he showed a lot of potential during his 2-year-old season and feels like a horse that should be best routing on the turf. We'll see if he can do it off the layoff, but I see you're going in a different direction.
Yeah, those are 2 very interesting picks in my opinion. I stuck with the Belmont Derby horses. Really, David, in my opinion, this race was, I think West End Kid's the horse to beat. I'm not way against him, but I did want to try to beat him. I was torn between the 5 and the 9, between Pacific Avenue and Bottas. I want one of those 2 horses. I made my picks way before I saw your morning line. If they actually bet this race the way that you laid it out, I would probably switch to Bottas here on top and just hope he gets the distance. But I thought Pacific Avenue deserved another chance off of a brutal trip last time.
I've got some interest in the number 1 Glavine and the number 7 the Big Con. Mike's got the number 5 Pacific Avenue and the number 9 Bottas. It's that kind of race. Many ways to go in this Grade 1 Saratoga Derby on Whitney Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.